Welcome to our class. In this class, I would like to provide an introduction and overview to the Bootstrap responsive framework. Bootstrap is a free front-end framework for faster and easier web development. It consists of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It enables us to easily create a responsive layout. It utilizes a mobile-first approach in its media queries that are built into it. The Bootstrap framework provides many design templates or components to provide every type of web interface that you need. Grids, typography, tables, navigation, forms, buttons, carousels, and many other. It also works with optional JavaScript plugins to create more interactive effects. Bootstrap was originally developed by Mark Otto and Jacob Thornton while they worked at Twitter. Their goal was to develop a framework to provide consistency among the developers at Twitter, as a lot of the applications were not very uniform. The Bootstrap framework was officially implemented in 2011. Initially, it was called Twitter Blueprint. You may also hear of it referred to as Twitter Bootstrap, as it has its origin in Twitter. However, it is commonly referred to now as just Bootstrap. As of this recording, we are currently in version 3.3.7, although version 4 will be released soon. Bootstrap is very easy to use. Anyone with just basic knowledge of HTML can start using Bootstrap. All you need to do is understand how the classes work with respect to the corresponding HTML, and you can easily implement a very nice layout. It has responsive features. The CSS automatically adjusts to phones, tablets, and desktops. Its mobile-first approach is evident in the CSS, which is part of the core framework. It is compatible with all modern browsers. So how do you use Twitter Bootstrap? There are two ways. You can go to the home page, getbootstrap.com, and you can download the files. Now, there are CSS files and JavaScript files. When you download the framework, it will put these files into different folders. So should you use the downloaded version, you need to make sure that the paths to these essential files are correct. However, you also have the ability to use what is called the Content Delivery Network, or CDN. And this means that these files are hosted for you on a web host. So all you need to do is copy in the code, paste it into your HTML document. There are several advantages to using a CDN. To begin, many users have already landed on a site that uses Bootstrap, and therefore they have already downloaded that CDN onto their computer. So therefore it can be loaded from cache when they first visit your site. This leads to a faster load time. Most CDNs make sure that a user requests a file from the cache, and it will be served from the closest server to them, which also leads to a faster load time. So because Bootstrap is geared to providing a responsive and mobile layout, we need to make sure we have the correct HTML elements in place. These are the basic elements that you need. You should always have the HTML5 doc type, the HTML tag lang equals en for accessibility for screen readers. The first element in the head section should always be meta carousel. Now we're also going to use another meta tag, which essentially will tell the mobile device to use the latest version of these browsers. Now we have the meta viewport tag, which sets the layout for our mobile devices. You would first need to code in the reference to the Bootstrap CSS file, and notice that these are minified, meaning that all the extra characters have been stripped out, again for faster load time. You also can use the optional theme, and also should you wish to use some of the JavaScript, you would need the JavaScript file. Now, one thing I would like to point out, you may see developers putting this JavaScript file at the very end of the body, and that is for page load speed, and that is perfectly acceptable. The biggest advantage of using Bootstrap is that it has this very nice, easy to use grid layout. No more dealing with floats and even Flexbox. These classes do it all for you. So Bootstrap is based on a 12-column grid. Now granted, we're not going to use all 12 columns. However, we use combinations of 12, such as 3 across, 4 across, 2 across, etc. We also have, based on our 4 extensions are class prefixes here, call XS, call SM, call MD, and call large. It determines how the behavior of these columns work with respect to when they will automatically collapse and at what breakpoints. So you can see if you were coding in call XS, they would be horizontal across at all times, and that would be for a small device. The way Bootstrap implements the grid layout is that your grids are enclosed with a container. Now, here we see a pure div layout. Your outer container can be a semantic HTML5 element also. So that is the outer container, and by default, that is the size based on the types of columns, and that will be centered. So inside every row, which is indicated by our class equals row, you will have another element with the class equals the calls. So if you wanted one large column, you would use the prefix 12. If you wanted 3 smaller columns, you could use the prefix 4 as we see here. So it is very easy to actually set up your column layout with Bootstrap. Should you wish these containers to be fluid, meaning 100%, you would merely change the class to container-fluid. So there is a lot of flexibility and also a lot of documentation on the web with respect to how to use these classes. Now let's take a look at how easy it is to create a navigation bar. And here we see a basic nav bar. And if you look at our HTML, you see here is our UL with our LI elements, which is our standard code for navigation. And if you recall, navigation is always extremely difficult to implement. Not anymore. Just by using the basic HTML layout and the classes, you can very easily create a very nice fluid navigation bar. And not only can you create a very nice fluid navigation bar, but with a few more lines of code, that navigation bar will be collapsible and you will see our 3-line menu when you are on a mobile device. So all of this responsiveness is built into Bootstrap. So let's take a look at our Bootstrap page. Here we are on the Getting Started page, and if you scroll down, it gives you the ability to download it. You also have the links to the CDN that you can very easily copy. There is some additional installation. If you were to want to work with these CSS preprocessors, you would need to install it differently. Here we see some basic templates, and you can actually see the examples here. You can click on these images, and you actually see what the template looks like. You can right-click, and you can copy that code, and that will start you. So here we have a basic Bootstrap starter template, and your navigation is already set for you. So if I were to right-click and look at the page source, the only difference is that their links to the framework are located on their server, so you would need to replace that with links to your framework files or to the Content Delivery Network. But all you would need to do is actually just copy in the basic code right here and add to it. Remember, I did discuss that the JavaScript is sometimes placed at the end of the page, and in this example it is. A lot of nice examples here on our Getting Started page. If you click on the Components link, you see that Bootstrap automatically comes with these very many glyphicons that are implemented as CSS fonts. And one interesting thing about the Bootstrap menu, it's very interactive. As you scroll down, it shows you where you are. You also can just click and go to a specific page. And here we are on the nav. So if you wanted to find out a little bit more about different types of navigation, and there's our default nav bar. There's documentation. There's always an example, and right underneath the example is the source code itself. So it is very easy to use. It's just a matter of looking at the components, reading a little bit about them, and learning a little bit more about the different classes. So if I were to look at the CSS, this is where you can find more information about all of the classes that Bootstrap uses. Here are some good information on their grid system. Explains a little bit about how they lay out the columns and the grids. Shows you a little bit more about their default media queries, breakpoints. You also can code for both desktop and mobile by using two classes. Here again, this is all explained for you. W3 Schools provides an excellent resource and tutorial for learning Bootstrap. So here we see the very beginning, and again, some sample code based on the pictures. And a very nice thing that W3 Schools has these try it out sections. Here is the web page underneath here with 3 columns. And you can actually edit this code and play around with it to see how Bootstrap works. So a couple of very nice things that we have on W3 Schools. Again, the grid, which is the core of Bootstrap, understanding the grid system and the different grid classes. Images, some very nice automatic classes for configuring corners on images and creating thumbnails. The Jumbotron is just like a large area for calling attention. You sometimes see people placing sliders inside that. There's a whole section here at W3 Schools on working with grids. We also have some themes and some templates. Very easy here to implement. And a very nice CSS reference. So if you want to know a little bit more about these classes, or you're not sure of what these classes do, they have a very nice complete list of all the different classes. And not only explaining, again, they have these very nice try it out sections for helping you with Bootstrap. However, if you were more interested in classes that pertain to a certain section, such as navs, all those classes are here in this one location. So here's our different ways of fixing our nav bar. For example, it can be fixed at the top, fixed at the bottom. So this is Bootstrap, an extremely popular front-end web development framework.